truths that are molding and shaping your journey over these 50 days. Each day, taking out one of these promises and releasing some of that power, positive, that's been packed in here, you find some wonderful truths. And I'm going to draw one out for us today that you may already have. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth. God is the source of our abundance. What a wonderful promise to live by. A wonderful promise to understand that we are wealthy in our health, rich in our abundance, rich in our wonderful sense of love of the divine presence. There is so much when we look at that term wealth, a wealth of so many great things. So I hope that you've been utilizing your wonderful power-packed positive promise jar each and every day as you've been opening it and allowing it to shape and mold your life as we think about these promises that are so true and real, and we begin to apply them to our lives. Then, of course, each day in great gratitude, we're putting something back in. Because you know what? It's really the very cycle of spiritual economics, because as you give, you receive, and as you receive, you give, and it goes on in this wonderful spiritual transformation that goes on in our lives. So as we want to express gratitude for the truth that's found in this jar, we want to express gratitude for these power-packed promises within our journey. So we're putting something back in a daily experience of gratitude, an expression of gratitude that shapes and molds our lives. Now, it's essential that we experience this on a daily thing because that's how it unfolds for our life. The daily sense of gratitude, the daily sense of appreciation for these promises shapes and molds our journey. And that's what becomes so transformational. Then Easter Sunday, we're all bringing these jars filled with those $20,000 checks that you've been writing. Hey, think big, right? And we're going to create a wonderful miracle as we share together, because it is according to our faith that we're believing for a financial blessing for this ministry that goes above and beyond, that will help us launch this ministry and moving it forward in a dynamic way. Now, how many of you will say, I am believing with you for this wonderful miracle? Let's raise your hand. Say, yes, I'm believing with you. And I love that, because as we are in agreement in great faith believing together, it is so. It's already claimed. So I'm so excited about Easter. I can't wait. Because I know as we're celebrating the Easter Sunday and its powerful message of resurrection, we know that as we're celebrating this miracle, there's something wonderful that's already going to be experienced in a dynamic way. And so we say, thank you, God, in advance, because we know that something amazing is unfolding in our agreement. I want to say thank you to all of our musicians, our ushers and greeters. We appreciate Dr. Alan Williams stepping up and helping us in ministry, as well as Tim Tate today as an usher, along with those who are helping us with hospitality. There's so many wonderful ways that you've been a blessing in ministry. Our Reiki healers, we greatly appreciate the wonderful work you're doing here, as well as those people who are involved just in great fellowship and sharing love and light in this world together. Thank you so much. I appreciate each and every one of you. Let me just begin by saying that it's important for us to learn lessons in life. Don't you all agree? You know, we go through life and we have to ask ourselves, what did we learn? Each and every day, there's essential lessons being taught to us, for I believe our whole life is this wonderful learning experience. But one of life's great lessons that we really need to grasp is found within today's message. It's a powerful lesson for our life that is essential. It's simply this. We're learning how to get out of the way. That's right. A great lesson in life is learn to get out of the way. Learn to get out of the way. Now, I learned that in the physical sense years ago. I worked in a vibrant, busy restaurant, and I learned how important it was to get out of the way. Yes, because there were certain times when there were deliveries made, and our manager would yell, people, move, get out of the way. We're having deliveries coming in. Hurry, hurry, hurry. And there would be times when waiters were rushing out orders, and they'd be carrying all these plates of hot meals, and they'd be yelling, people, get out of the way, move, come on, make way, because we've got to get this accomplished. And there would be times when there were hot food coming in or being prepared, and there was all this kind of stuff that's in this busy, vibrant, active restaurant. Well, it was essential. Move, get out of the way. Stop being an obstruction. Ooh, wow. I can hear those words yet today of the manager teaching us one of the most essential lessons of our life. In life, it's necessary to learn to get out of the way, but I'm not just talking about the physical. I'm talking about in your spiritual life. I'm talking about something very essential for us to learn, that we need to simply stop being an obstruction. We need to get out of the way. We need to move, step aside, shall we say, and allow the wonderful Spirit of God in divine flow to move unimpeded, just freely moving and flowing in this wonderful way. Because sometimes we just don't understand how essential it is that we have stepped aside to allow what is divine operation, which is divinely ordained for our lives, to simply transpire within our life. Do you realize that there are spiritual laws that we live in, that are operating around us? Jesus and so many ancient teachers really tried to teach this, but unfortunately, so much of religion has overlooked these powerful truths. These are spiritual laws. That are universal laws, that are unchanging laws, that are there that you can trust and you can depend upon, and they help us as guidelines to how to move and operate in this world. Now, let me just share a few of them, just a refresher. There's the law of divine oneness, okay? Just simply understanding that everything in this world is interconnected. You and I are interconnected. This whole community is interconnected. The world is interconnected because every thought and action and every event is some way connected to everything else. You know, how many of you heard of that butterfly theory? That something that happens just creates a vibration that flows all around the world. When a butterfly flies and flaps its wings, that simply energy is moved all around the world as it happens, as it moves through touching the leaves, as the leaves begin to move through the trees, the winds and the breeze begins to touch the animals or the bees that fly and carry them. On goes the list, as we might think about something so small and so insignificant. But we're all interconnected, and everything we do is connected to one another. The spiritual law of cause and effect. That is, that every action creates an effect. Everything you do is creating some kind of effect in this world. When you're operating in the actions of love, grace, peace, you're going to create those kind of effects. And when you're operating in anger, fear, or in judgment, they're going to create effects. So we look and see this wonderful law of how it's at work. Everything we do is creating some sort of effect, and it's going to unfold for us, and we may not see the effect right away, but it does come to us. Now then, there's the law of attraction, that likes attract likes, that the things that you believe and you're seeking for, you have to believe that they're able to obtain. So is this energy of saying, I believe it is so, is a like that attracts it is so. And so it is in this wonderful energy, the law of attraction is at work within our spiritual lives. The law of compensation, which means you will reap what you sow. So we think about it. What have I been sowing? What have I been sowing? And your efforts will come back to you in this wonderful way, identical to what you've sown in life. Scripture has echoed this down through the ages. People often lose sight of what have I been sowing because I'm not happy with what I've been reaping. So these spiritual laws are there that really speak to us, that help us understand how all this unfolds in the world. Because these are the very laws of this universe. Now, we may think, we look, God, where are you? God, why have you not stopped the famine? God, why are you allowing wars? God, why is all this happening? If you're the Almighty God, why are these things not resolved? You see, God looks at us and says, I gave you free will and free choice. Why have you not stopped the wars? Why have you not resolved famine? Why have you not created more energy of love? You see, all of this is within us, for God has given us the free will to choose. And these are spiritual laws that we operate and work through. And when we understand them, something amazing happens. But here's the thing. These laws, whether you pay attention to them or not, are constantly working. Now, whether you agree or not, let me tell you this. If you're not conscious of these laws, they're working for you or against you. But when you're not focused on what you're sowing, honey, you're going to reap no matter what. You're going to reap something, even if you haven't been diligent with sowing in some wonderful way. So I'm really saying to you and coaching you and really helping you to understand these things that, just as we look at the physical law of gravity, that doesn't need to be begged or pleaded with, and it just works constantly, doesn't it? We don't say, gravity, hold me down. We're not saying, oh, please ground me today because I'm afraid I'm going to take off and be flowing through space, right? We just take it for granted that gravity's at work. So it is with these spiritual laws. These laws are at work in your life. And what's always essential is that we learn to understand these laws and we work within the context of these laws. For in the context of these laws, there's infinite freedom. We have laws in this world, in this physical world. Laws like speed limits. Isn't it wonderful we have those laws? Because it allows us the freedom to move freely on the highway. Now, if everybody was speeding, or if there's laws where people are on the interstate only driving 10 miles an hour, or there's people who are driving 110 miles an hour, you might say that, whoa, this is scary and I don't feel comfortable here. But there's a law that says you drive the speed limit. Oh, and that brings about freedom for everyone. So it is that spiritual laws are here and they're bringing your freedom. They're liberating. They're giving you the guidelines to say, when I work within these spiritual laws, amazing things happen for me. And I don't need to beg or beseech them. I don't need to pray and say, oh, let this spiritual law be at work. It's at work. It's at work whether you realize it or not. Nothing can hinder this divine flow that's within our life except our own free will. Our own choices. That's right. We are the ones who get in the way. We get in the way with the forgetting to make a positive choice in life, or making, in fact, no choice at all. We become this sort of barrier. We become this blockage to the divine unfolding of good. And what happens is then what unfolds we may not like so much. Because, well, let's just say, for instance, we've been sowing anger and hate. And then we're all frustrated, saying, why am I reaping anger and hate from everyone else around me? Well, I don't understand. I don't like my life. I'm not happy with my life. I'm not fulfilled with my life. Well, what have you been sowing? So you see how this spiritual law works regardless? Even if we're not fully aware of it, it's at work. It's like this. The sun may be shining while we're standing in a dark basement. It's still shining, isn't it? Even though you're in the dark basement and you don't realize it, you may not perceive it, you may not be aware of it, but it's still shining. And so it is that God's goodness and God's blessings are unfolding even when we're not prepared. For these spiritual laws are the way that the divine is working within our life. We begin to understand this infinite presence we call God. We've been thinking so long that God is some sort of human being up there on a throne, looking down and making decisions for us and around us, and making our lives maybe miserable or trying to manipulate our life. But God is saying, no, you have free will and choice. How you live your life has always been up to you and the choices that you've made. And my love is always there, whether you have chosen to receive it. My love and goodness and blessings and unfolding goodness has been there all along, whether you choose to receive it or not. The challenging thing is that these spiritual laws will work for our good if we begin to use them. That's right. We begin to really embrace them. I was speaking with a woman who said, I didn't realize how much doubt and fear I was sowing in my words. I didn't realize it. I wasn't aware of that. I was really sowing all of this into my life. And I wasn't realizing as I was reaping more and more of this, that this law brings about what you sow. And I didn't realize, I wasn't taking into account what I had been sowing in my world. And this is why it's so essential that we begin to say, what have I been sowing? What have I been casting out? What seeds have I been throwing out through my words, my actions, and my deed? You see, Jesus taught over and over again, inviting us to listen and to understand this thing. You are a beneficiary. Wow, beneficiary. Wow, I love that. Philippians 4, chapter 19 says, my God shall supply your every need according to his riches. That's right. My God shall supply. That means provide. That means offer it to you freely. It's there for us. That this is one of the wonderful understandings, that when we awaken to this spiritual laws and we begin to sow this kind of consciousness and we begin to understand these promises that are power-packed and we begin to utilize it, we begin to awaken to the fact that God is so generous and is there to supply every single need. Proverbs 10:22 says, "It is the blessing of the Lord that makes rich." Rich not just in money, I'm talking about the richness in health and richness in love, richness in joy and peace, richness in all kinds of blessings of provision. There is all kinds of infinite richness that is there for us. It is there for us if we are willing to allow the spiritual laws to work in our life. So here it is, that he offers the greatest teaching of life. Yes, Jesus, our master way shower, offering us this understanding, and he's telling us this: simply get out of the way, because you may have been an obstruction, and it's essential that you start to move because the blessings of God are there. They are there when we have, whether we understand it or whether we're aware of it or not. So here it is that we begin to say, if we've been living in fears and doubts and questionings and feelings of insecurity about God's desire to bless, those moments maybe that we've been walking in unbelief, what are they doing? They're obstacles. Move. Get out of the way. Let me tell you this. This getting out of the way is not a physical thing. It's a spiritual thing within. That's what it's all about. It's the mental treatment that we must do that is now shifting our thoughts to affirming and living in confidence that nothing can keep our good away. Nothing but ourselves. And when we move out of the way, we're in infinite flow. That's right. Let's just talk about that for a moment. Infinite flow, divine flow. That's what God is. This wonderful goodness that's ever flowing around and always for you, in you, and through you. That's right. When we understand that the divine has created a universe of flow, that's right, of love, of grace, of peace. It's flowing all around us. Now, we may be an obstruction. And what do we find in an obstruction in a stream? What does the water do? Does it stop flowing? No, it flows around that obstruction. So let me tell you, this divine flow is happening all around you in all kinds of unique and exciting ways. But possibly, if you're not experiencing it, you need to move out of the way to allow it and not be the obstruction, but to allow that. So moving out of the way is a change of thinking within our heart and life. Moving out of the way is a change of our outlook. We begin to say, instead of like, I don't believe, I do believe. I don't fear anymore. I am walking in confidence. I am walking in this wonderful sense of believing. Let me ask you this. What have you believed for today? A lot of people say, you know what? I kind of stopped believing. I don't really exercise believing. I'm not claiming or believing something. I just go through my day. Every single day, whatever happens, happens. And I just never believe. I never really exercise the sense of faith. But here's what it is. Every single day, we're called to believe. And I want you to believe for something. Hey, I'll let you even believe for a good parking spot at Costco. Or pray that, your toast doesn't burn. I don't care, but are you believing for something? And I'm certainly encouraging you to believe small in the beginning as you begin to grow in your belief to something even greater, something more fantastic. But we must be exercising this experience of believing because divine flow is there. It's happening for us. It's flowing in and through and around you. But if you're not believing for it, then you may miss out on flow. Optimum word, that's right. Optimum word is flow. And optimum means that the best or most favorable word or the most favorable degree or condition of explaining something is this, flow. It is the optimum word that we may look at it. Optimum is that just understanding that it is the most perfect or the best description. And the word flow is this, it's moving steadily, right? Flow is moving steadily. It's continuously flowing like a stream. So when we get this visual within our mind, we're understanding that divine flow, God's goodness is there and it's flowing all around us. And what's required for us is to get out of the way by awakening our consciousness. to the flow, to the goodness, to God's blessing. Now, I grew up in a church of tradition of testimonies, where people always had testimonies. And we'd invite people to pop up, shall we say, and just stand up right where they are and say, let me tell you how God's goodness is unfolding. Let me tell you how the blessings are there. Let me tell you what God did for me today. Let me tell you and I love that. I think we somehow miss that tradition in our world today that's always affirming the fact, I am in divine flow. Goodness is all around me. Goodness is there. We need to witness to it. We need to testify to it. We need to tell others of it, because in this, it creates a greater consciousness that if you're in flow and there's no difference between you and me, I must also be in flow. But if I'm not experiencing divine flow, maybe I'm in the way. Something's in the way. My consciousness, my lack of recognition of God's power, presence, and wisdom. Let me tell you this. One of the greatest things you can do is the first thing of your day when you wake up is begin to recognize God's power, presence, and wisdom. God being omnipotent. God being ever present in our life. God being omniscience, this infinite wisdom and intelligence for us. And when we begin our day with simply this gift of recognition, I recognize this within my life, everything begins to fall into place. Why? Because you've recognized I am living in power. I am living in loving presence. I am living in infinite wisdom. You see, it's God's nature to give. Now, that's sometimes hard for us to understand because we think it's always our nature to give to God. Pastors are always saying, we need you to give of your time, give of your talent, give of your treasures. And we're always thinking, okay, we're always having to give to God. Oh, no, it's the other way around. God is eagerly ready to give to you, always in a spirit of generosity. But since we have the freedom of choice, God can't compel us to receive what we've not been willing to receive because we've been in the way. We've been a block. We've had this I don't know, God's not going to bless me today. I haven't been believing for anything today. I don't really believe and understand that there's blessing, but here's the key essential thing is when we get out of the way, when we cooperate, we do this by opening our life to saying, I am living in a consciousness of receiving. Divine flow is all around me, and I am receiving it today. This is this wonderful readiness that we may call, creating a receiving center. Can I call it that? A receiving center. Say that with me. A receiving center. That's right. That's what we need to create within our lives. A receiving center that's sort of like a container of acceptance that says, oh, I am ready for divine flow. Here's my container of acceptance in my heart and mind. Or here's my bucket of belief. That's right. It is so full of belief. I am ready for that divine flow to experience in my life. Or a 50-gallon drum of expectancy, of the generosity that is there. Because if you don't have this receiving center, God's generosity may just flow by, flow around you. You see? Now, years ago, my father, being the prudent, frugal Dutchman that he is, wanted to capture the rain that was falling so freely from the skies to water his gardens. So he got out his 50-gallon drums and he placed them strategically underneath the downspouts from the roof and would capture all this rainwater. And it was his receiving center. Several 50-gallon drums were there to collect all of that which is flowing freely. Wow. What a message. He knew that nature's generous way of providing was there, but without some sort of receiving element, a receiving center, some sort of drum to collect all the water, that rainwater would come, but he wouldn't receive it because it would just flow on by. So strategically, he planned these 50-gallon drums, and they would fill with water. He'd water his garden, he'd water his plants, he'd water the yard, he would do all kinds of wonderful things with all of this blessing freely given. This is why it's so essential that we understand this, that God knows no limitation and that blessings are flowing continually. And we impose this bondage on our belief when we are not understanding this spiritual law of God's great generosity. And when we sow a consciousness of believing in divine flow, we're receiving it and we'll reap it. You see? We had a vision here at City of Light When we bought this building, we bought a unique facility. I've had people say to me, it doesn't look very much like a church. It doesn't look very churchy. There's no high cathedral ceilings and there's no grand altar areas and all these kind of things. I said, but is that what makes a church? A church is that which is within our heart and our life. But we had a vision that was greater than just some grand homage to God or spirituality, but a vision of a spiritual center that would touch the hearts and lives of the communities of Atlanta and meet their needs. This is referred to as the center of hope, healing, and restoration. And today, 5 churches are in our building today. A 6th one is on Tuesday. But while we're gathering here, there's a church on the 2nd floor that's meeting that had no place to go, and we offered them the opportunities. There's a 3rd church in Perry Hall that's meeting today that is Rise Church. That they are coming together to be part of this wonderful message of spiritual awakening. When we leave this facility at 1 o'clock, another church comes in to use our space. And on Tuesday night, when we've all left the building, there's another church called Liberation Ministries. You see, what we're doing is operating the spiritual center that gives places for people to share in ministry. Now, there's a lot of people who say, well, I love my grand cathedral. I love those high arching ceilings and stained glass windows. We come on Sunday morning, and when we leave, we lock the doors, and dust collects all week. And then we come back on Sunday. And we think about what we've been given. We give back. Why? Because we're in divine flow. We're in divine flow. We're in divine flow. And in that, we are blessed immensely. Through the sharing that we do, many of these people make donations to the ministry here and enable us to do the work that we do as a spiritual center for Atlanta. So I want to understand this, how essential it is that we have a consciousness of this divine flow. And if you don't, I would like you to please step aside. Get out of the way, because, honey, the divine flow is coming. It is moving. It is here. It's all around us. There's a passage in Hebrews chapter 3, verse 15 through 19 that simply says this phrase, they could not enter in because of their unbelief. Now, it's the story of the children of Israel. How beautiful it is as they left captivity of their slavery in Egypt. They were promised this wonderful new homeland. It was promised. That's right, promised, okay? It's a done deal with a promise, right? It's a done deal, okay? So they're now wandering through the wilderness, and they come upon this promised land, but they didn't believe they could go in. They sent some spies in to check out this place and said, ooh, there's giants. I mean, there's tall people in there. There's all kinds of obstacles. Oh, my Lord, there's all kinds of challenges for us. I don't think we can do this. Wait a minute, it's promised. So they're not paying attention to the promise. They're not even understanding the word promise. They're not understanding divine flow has provided for them. Instead, they can't enter into the promised land because of their unbelief. And they were in the way. They allowed their unbelief to be an obstacle. They allowed this to be something that blocked the divine flow of provision for them. And the children of Israel instead wandered for another 40 years in the wilderness. It's a story for us that speaks to each and every one of us, that in their hearts there was no receiving center. In other words, there was no receiving center that says, I receive that which is promised. You know what? I think we need to go back in time and we need to get them all one of these power-packed promise jars, because it's full of all the promises that said, yes, this is what's going to happen in your life. This is what's there for you. Do you understand that a promise is a promise? There's no question about it. This is a jar full of answers. I'll tell you, I don't know about tomorrow. Well, then open up the jar and find this wonderful promise that's there for you that builds your faith. Now, this is to help you get out of the way. I prepared these for you to help you get out of the way and open your life and become a receiving center for all that God has in store for you. Infinite blessings are there. Now, what happens is our unbelief When we like, I don't know, I can't, and we're not even exercising any kind of believing at all. We haven't believed for anything. So we haven't put these spiritual laws into action into our life. What happens is that unbelief becomes our acceptance. I accept the belief that it's not going to happen. That's right. And then you wonder why divine flow passed you by. You wonder why divine flow. There's people who are telling all kinds of wonderful goodness, how God miraculously provided for them, how God made a way for them. And why is it not your story that God's made a way for you, that God's provided for you? You see, it is because of their unbelief that they couldn't enter in. And quite often it's our unbelief that keeps us from this wonderful blessing. So I'm inviting you today to begin to believe in God's divine givingness. That's right. Let's use that word, givingness. That's really what God's all about. Giving, providing. You see, God's love is so great that we were created to be a revelation of God. And you think God's going to say, well, you're on your own. Good luck. Have a good time. You're lucky if you survive. You're on your own. No. God made a way for us in givingness each and every day, every moment of our life. So I'm encouraging you to believe in God's divine will, that you should receive this givingness. That's right. You should be receiving right now that health, that wholeness, that completeness. You should be receiving that sense of prosperity and security in life. You should be receiving this wonderful understanding of infinite love that's there, that loves everyone in such an inclusive, powerful way. You should be receiving all of that which God is pouring out. So I'm asking you to right now set up your 50-gallon drum, your believing buckets, your containers of acceptance, and consciously get out of the way. Step aside. Move out. Get that self, that ego, that doubt, that fear, and that sense of lack out of the way. Because the divine flow is there right now, right here, today. It's flowing for you. It's flowing for me. When we're open to receive, it is so. Amen. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to be in more of the divine flow. How about you? I'm ready to walk in that wonderful sense of abundance. And I'm walking in it as we look and see how we are so infinitely blessed. Infinitely blessed. And we're walking in this wonderful experience of goodness. So I encourage you to share in a witness and a testimony of that which you believe as you offer your gifts in the offering today. And say, you know what? I'm in divine flow. Goodness is coming to me, prosperity has come to me, and I want to share it. For as I release, I make way for more to come. Let's share as the ushers come. Amen. Beautiful. You know, each one of these banners here are here not just for decoration, but inspiration. Praise God, from whom all blessings flow, right? With God, all things are possible. When we understand these truths in our life, there is something essential that's happening within us, an awareness of this divine givingness. As your pastor, I am passionate about this for you. As your spiritual coach, I'm passionate about this for you. I want you to receive these infinite blessings that are there. I don't want you to go another day missing out on all the goodness that God has for you. So I encourage you, this is your week to begin practicing I believe. And what are you believing for? Step out of the way and release those fears, doubts, and questions, and walk in this wonderful sense of knowing and praising God, from whom all blessings flow, because they are flowing for you. And now you may say, well, wait a minute, I didn't see any blessing 5 minutes ago, and I didn't see any blessing right now, and I don't see a blessing coming to me in the next 10 minutes. Oh, allow that flow to come to you. Because as we think about the rain that falls, that creates the Grand Mississippi River, it starts in a small little place way up north, and then it begins to flow. But it's coming. Oh, it's coming. It's flowing down and getting mightier and mightier, and it's called the mighty Mississippi, and it pours out into a grand ocean of your life. Let me tell you, that's exactly what God has in store for you right now, right here, this week, for your days ahead. I want you to be in that divine flow. I'm so grateful for the divine flow that has blessed me. You know, I am blessed. You know what? I lost a partner yesterday. Robert died 3 years ago on March the 16th. Infinite blessings. I have someone wonderful in my life that is taking me on the next level of journey. I'm in divine flow of God's goodness. How wonderful that is. I think about the many blessings that have come to my life that enable me to share. I want you to have that same joy. I want you to have that same experience for your life. So I'm inviting you to please remember, get out of the way. Step aside. Don't be an obstruction. Move. But move in the way that says, I am now welcoming. I'm accepting. I am a receiving center for the divine flow. With that, let's go in this wonderful sense of perfect peace that God has for us, singing this closing chorus. This chorus, yes, there is peace. Yes, there's blessing. Yes, there's prosperity. All these wonderful things. And it happens within us.
Yes, there is peace on earth, and yes, it begins in me. Yes, there is peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as my center, united all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Yes, peace begins with me. Yes, this is the moment now. With every step I take, yes, this is my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment, peace eternally. Yes, there is peace on earth, and yes, it begins in me.
Would you pray with me? Let's pray together. In this moment, we are people who are receiving the divine flow. For we claim this. We agree together in this moment that we are willing to step aside and releasing all obstructions of fear, doubt, questioning, and wondering, but walk in this sense of knowing that there is a divine flow. It is a divine givingness that is God, ever ready to provide and make a way. For God shall supply our very need according to his riches and glory. And in this, we claim this wonderful truth to be evident within our life, for we begin to believe for great things. We're believing for our health. We're believing for our strength. We're believing together for greater love in our world. We're believing for a greater sense of love, grace, and compassion. We're believing for prosperity and abundance to be felt and experienced across our world, not only for us individually, for all those around us as well. For in this, we are now welcoming this wonderful truth of spiritual law that works within our life. For as we believe, so shall we receive. As we sow in this consciousness, that's what we're going to reap. That we are of this like that will attract a similar like. That we are understanding that we are one with all of this divine givingness. We understand all these spiritual laws at work within us. And we walk in these truths and implement them. We're grateful for this as we go into this world now transformed as a community, ready to be a receiving center of infinite goodness. As together we say, and so it is.
To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Yes, there is peace on earth, and yes, it begins in me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to speak to our Facebook and social media audience. We're so glad that you've come to be with us through this medium each and every week. City of Light is a wonderful place of love and acceptance, a great place of empowerment and spiritual truth that is practical for your life. We invite you to join us in person. We'd love for you to experience what we're all experiencing in this room, this dynamic energy and presence of God that is truly celebrated in our life. Come join us. We're located at 3125 Presidential Parkway here in Atlanta. And we are delighted to share with you that if there's some way we can be a blessing to you, please reach out to me. My email is revtpaul@aol.com. I'm here for you as your spiritual coach to help you on your journey of life for you achieving the highest and best. God bless you. Let us all go in God's peace now and join in fellowship and to our Friendship Commons and